Okay, I want to try something a little different to start today. I want you to pick up your phone.
Okay.
If you're driving, just visualize it. Look at that sleek piece of glass and metal. Now, when that thing starts glitching, when apps crash, the battery drains in an hour, or it just freezes up, what is your first thought?
Usually that I need to buy a new phone, or at the very least that I've been ignoring a software update for way too long.
Right. You don't blame the electrons inside. You don't blame the plastic or the glass. You blame the operating system. You think the code is broken.
Yeah, of course.
But here's the question that I've been obsessing over since I read our source material for today. Why do we ever do that with the country we live in?
That is the fundamental shift we are making in this deep dive, and it is a big one.
We're digging into a really unusual, honestly kind of brain-bending set of documents labeled GOA-11.
Right.
And the premise is simple but radical. Stop looking at the United States as a political entity, flags, presidents, elections, the Constitution, and start looking at it as a giant legacy software project, a national operating system.
And I really want to stress the mission here before we get into the weeds, because usually when we talk about systems like this, it turns into a political shouting match instantly.
Right, yeah.
GOA-11 is strictly structural. We aren't here to critique a specific administration. We aren't here to say red is bad or blue is bad. We aren't even here to say the system is broken in a moral sense.
No policy proposals today. No vote for this guy.
None of that. We're looking at system design versus human reality. We're looking at the code that determines how you pay rent, how you get medical care, and frankly, whether the system classifies you as a viable user or something else.
And that's the hook for me. Because when you read this, you realize this isn't abstract philosophy. This operating system is running in the background of my life right now.
It affects everything.
It's like discovering you've been playing a game for 30 years, but you never actually read the rule book.
It's the invisible architecture. The central thesis of this document is that life conditions in the U.S. are no longer determined by human negotiation or judgment. They are predetermined by numbers.
We're bumping up against the operational limits of a quantified society.
Exactly.
So let's boot this up. If I'm a user, just a regular person living in this national OS, what is the interface? What am I actually interacting with? The source material calls it the stack.
Right. In software engineering, the stack is the set of technologies that makes an app run database server interface. In the national OS, the stack consists of 5 layers: credit, contracts, scores, insurance, and prices.
It sounds mundane when you list it like that. It sounds like a boring pile of paperwork on a desk.
It feels like paperwork, but functionally, it's code. These aren't just administrative hoops. They are the gatekeepers.
Yes.
Well, think about it. Can you physically enter a new apartment without the credit layer executing a command? Can you drive a car legally without the insurance layer verifying your status?
No. The door is locked until the number says it opens. Even if I have the cash in hand, sometimes that's not enough if the score layer says no.
Exactly. And this brings us to the most critical distinction in the document, which explains why life feels different now than maybe it did for previous generations. It's the shift from post-evaluation to predetermination.
Break that down. What was the old world version? Because I feel like I missed that update.
In the previous version of the OS, let's say mid-20th century, society largely ran on post-evaluation. You got the job, you moved into the apartment, and then you were judged on your performance.
Okay.
If you didn't pay rent, you got evicted. If you messed up at work, you got fired. The judgment came after the human action.
Okay, so I was given the chance to play the game, and if I lost, I lost. But I was allowed on the field.
Correct. But the current quantified national OS relies on predetermination. Your feasibility, your ability to even attempt the action, is decided in advance by an algorithm.
So you don't get the apartment and see if you can pay.
No, the algorithm predicts your risk and decides if you're even allowed to apply.
It's like Minority Report for economics. You're being judged for failures you haven't committed yet.
In a way, yes. It removes the human element of the benefit of the doubt. A landlord 40 years ago might look at you and say, "He seems like a hard worker, I'll take a chance."
Right.
An algorithm just sees a risk score of 580 and executes. Access denied. It filters you out before you can even prove yourself.
And that leads to this really dark, haunting term the source uses. It describes the psychological pressure of living under this predetermination. It calls it the sensation of being classified as non-continuable.
It stopped me in my tracks when I read that. Non-continuable.
It sounds industrial, like something you'd stamp on a broken part on an assembly line before tossing it in the scrap metal bin. Do not recycle. Non-continuable.
That's the point. The source describes millions of people who are physically alive. They're breathing, eating, maybe even working 2 jobs, taking care of kids. But the OS has flagged them as non-continuable.
Right.
Their numbers, debt to income, credit score, risk profile, have dropped below the threshold of viability.
So you're alive biologically, but digitally you're a ghost. You're locked out.
You are in the room, but you can't touch anything. You can't sign a lease. You can't get a loan for a car to get to the job to pay off the debt. You are operationally frozen.
Into the system.
To the system, you don't really exist anymore. You're just a drag on the processing speed.
This leads to the mechanism that keeps people there. The source calls it the self-amplifying loop. And I think this is where the listener is going to nod their head and say, yeah, I felt that, because I've definitely felt that.
Walk us through it. How does the loop trigger?
Okay, so step 1, a numerical value drops. Let's say your car breaks down, alternator goes out.
A common problem.
A very common problem. Yeah. You don't have the cash, so you put the repair on a credit card. Your utilization goes up, your score dips 20 points.
That's the input signal, a minor deviation.
But then comes step 2. Life becomes clogged. Because that score dropped, maybe your car insurance auto-renews at a higher rate because you're now higher risk.
Oh.
Or maybe you try to move to a cheaper apartment to save money, but you get rejected because of the score drop.
So your options restrict. You're trying to solve the problem, but the tools are being taken away.
Right. And that leads to step 3, amplification. Because you're stuck in the expensive apartment or paying higher insurance premiums, your cash flow drains faster. You miss a payment. The score drops further.
And the loop restarts.
But faster this time.
It's a downward spiral. But here's the structural insight that is difficult to swallow. In a typical software system, a loop that crashes a user would be considered a bug.
A glitch. You'd call tech support.
You'd patch it. You'd say, whoops, this user is stuck. Let's reset them.
Yeah.
But GOA-11 argues that in the national OS, this loop is institutionalized normalization.
Normalized? You mean the system is supposed to do that?
It means the system is built to tolerate it. The market OS doesn't crash just because a human user gets stuck in a poverty loop. In fact, the system often extracts fees during that spiral late fees, overdraft fees, higher interest rates.
So the clogging.
It isn't a crisis for the OS, it's a feature. It's functioning exactly as coded.
That is cold. It makes you feel very small.
It's indifferent. That's the key word. It's not malicious. It's computational. It's just executing logic statements.
So if this isn't a bug, if this is the intended architecture, we have to look at the source code. Who wrote this? What are the core rules?
The document breaks down the 3 lines of code that define the U.S. operating system.
Let's go through them because this explains why the loop is allowed to happen.
Sure. Line 1 is the hierarchy of trust. Trust is placed in the market over the state.
Which means we assume the private sector will always do it better than the government.
Correct. The assumption is that the market is efficient, adaptable, and self-correcting, while the state is a bottleneck. So, whenever possible, functions, even essential ones like health or housing, are offloaded to the market.
Which explains why we have the stack in the first place. Okay, line 2.
Public buffering is minimized.
Buffering. I usually think of that when Netflix is loading.
It's a similar concept. In a computer, a buffer creates a safe space for data so it doesn't get lost. In a society, a buffer is public housing, universal health care, unemployment benefits, things that catch you when you fall.
Right.
The USOS views these buffers as inefficiencies. They are latency in the market. So the code minimizes them to keep the system fast and lean.
So if you trip, you hit the concrete. There's no foam pit.
Exactly. And the third one, this was the one that felt the most profound to me. This is the root level access.
Yeah, this one gave me chills. Line 3, the definition of the human.
This OS does not view people as personalities or souls or citizens in the emotional sense. It views them as contract-capable entities.
Contract-capable entity. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi dystopia.
But it's legal reality. As long as you can sign a contract and fulfill the numerical terms, pay the mortgage, service the debt, pay the premium, you are a valid user. You have rights and access.
You are green on the dashboard.
Exactly. But the moment you can't, say you get cancer and can't work, or you just have a run of terrible luck, you can no longer fulfill the contract. Then you cease to be a valid entity in the eyes of the processing logic. The system revokes your access. This is what the source calls the delegation of existence.
We've delegated our right to exist to the market.
Yes. If the market says you're valid, you live well. If it says you aren't, you don't.
This creates a massive conflict. The document calls it the mismatch. And this feels like the core tension of our lives right now.
It's the friction point. Think of the national OS and the market OS as high-frequency trading algorithms. They operate at the speed of light, they are rigid, binary, and efficient.
And then there's us, the human OS.
We are biological, we're messy, we need sleep, we age, we have mental health crises, we have babies, we grieve. The human OS cannot run at the clock speed of the market OS.
It's like trying to run Cyberpunk 2077 on a Commodore 64.
The hardware is going to melt.
The hardware being us, our nervous systems. That's why everyone is so tired. We're trying to emulate a machine.
Exactly. And the structural flaw identified in GOA-11 is that the national OS lacks a human retention function.
Explain that. What does a retention function look like?
It means there is no line of code that says if the user fails the market test, keep them safe anyway. The system is designed to sustain the contract, not the human.
So if the human aligns with the contract, they survive.
And if they don't, the system simply processes the ejection. It clears the cache.
It feels like we're living in a factory that thinks it's a country. A garden is designed to keep plants alive. A factory is designed to produce units. If a unit is defective, you toss it.
You don't nurse it back to health. It's a very apt analogy. And it brings us to the future. Because the source material doesn't just stop at everything is broken. It looks at where this is going.
The gradients.
The gradients, yes. I like that they didn't call them predictions.
Right, because nobody knows the future.
A prediction says X will happen on Tuesday. A gradient is like a slope. It says, if water keeps pouring here, this is the direction it will flow. It allows for movement.
So let's look at the 3 branches of the future outlined here. Where does this water flow? Branch A. This is labeled high probability.
Branch A is further integration. Basically, the OS doubles down. The numerical chain gets tighter. Algorithms get even better at predicting who is contract capable.
So more efficiency. That sounds good.
Efficient for the system, maybe? But for the user, it means dropping out becomes normalized. We see a scenario where the economy is technically booming, stocks are up, GDP is up, technology is incredible, but a significant percentage of the population is simply ejected. They exist in the geographic U.S., but they are logged out of the economic U.S.
It's the shiny city on the hill, but half the people are camping at the base of the wall, and the people inside the city don't even see them anymore.
Precisely. The system optimizes by shedding the inefficient human components. It becomes a smaller, exclusive club.
Okay, that's bleak. What's behind door knock 2? Branch B, medium probability.
Branch B is the reaction to Branch A. It's the off-grid shift. As the pressure of the numbers gets too high for the human OS to handle, people start building their own smaller operating systems.
The text called this recommunalization.
It's the return of the local. If I can't get a loan from the bank because of my score, maybe I borrow from my community pool. If I can't buy food at the supermarket price, maybe I trade labor for vegetables with a neighbor.
It sounds quaint, almost hipsterish like sourdough starters and backyard chickens, but the source implies this isn't a lifestyle choice.
It's a survival strategy. It's a lifeboat. It's people disconnecting from the central mainframe because the mainframe has labeled them non-continuable.
And that would mean?
It implies a weakening of the state, actually. People stop looking to the national OS for solutions and start looking at each other.
So branch A is hypertech, branch B is almost neo-feudal. What is branch C?
Branch C is partial reassumption. This is the patch scenario. The state realizes that if too many people drop out or disconnect, the whole system becomes unstable.
So they try to fix the code?
They step back in to create buffer zones. The state might say, okay, medical care cannot be solely market-driven anymore, or housing for families is protected from pure pricing algorithms.
They reassume the responsibility for human retention.
They write a line of code that says, do not delete user.
Exactly.
But here's the kicker, and this is the part that really frames how we should look at the next 10 years. The source says simultaneity.
Meaning, these aren't multiple choice. We don't get to vote on branch A, B, or C.
We aren't going to wake up in 2030 and see branch B1. All 3 of these are going to happen at the same time, probably in the same city.
That's chaos.
Imagine a single city block. In the high-rise penthouse, you have branch A people fully integrated, living in a seamless, high-tech, algorithmically optimized world.
Everything is delivered by drone. Everything is auto-paid.
And on the street level, you might have branch B people engaging in gray market economies. Cash-only barter, effectively off-grid because they've been locked out of the banking system.
And then down the street at the clinic.
You have branch C, a government program, trying to patch the holes, offering subsidized care to keep the population viable.
3 different operating systems trying to run on the same hardware. That creates a lot of heat.
That friction is the future. That is the crossroads the title refers to. It's not just a political crossroads, it's an existential one about how we organize human life.
So where does this leave us? We've got this machine, it's running efficiently, but it's indifferent to us. The conclusion of GOA-11 brings it down to what they call the operational limit.
Yes. The document doesn't offer a solution. It poses 2 questions. And they aren't rhetorical, they are existential limits.
The first one, how far can a state directly treat humans as living beings rather than data points?
This cuts to the core of modern governance. If the state is just a manager for the market, does it even have the capacity to see a human being?
Or is it structurally blind to anything that isn't a number?
Can the OS even recognize the user anymore, or does it only recognize the wallet?
And the second question, which I think is the one that keeps me up at night, at what point does a society that entrusts existence to numbers lose the ability to retain its human population?
That is the question of sustainability, not climate sustainability, but human sustainability.
Right.
If your OS is efficient, the stock market is perfect, but it operationally ejects 30% or 40% of your citizens, is it still a functioning society?
Or has it become a paperclip maximizer? A machine that just runs for its own sake, churning out numbers while the people rust outside.
And remember, the source material emphasizes no moral judgment. It's not saying the system is evil. It's saying the system has reached a phase where human retention is no longer a guaranteed output.
It's a structural fact.
It is.
Which, strangely, helps me process it. If I think the system is evil, I get angry. If I think the system is just .code, I can start to think like a hacker. I can look for the exploits.
That is the takeaway. When you stop blaming yourself for every error message, when you stop thinking I am a failure and start thinking the algorithm has flagged a variable, it changes how you navigate.
You stop taking it personally. You realize you're just dealing with a very strict, very dumb computer.
And you start seeing the gradients in your own life. You can ask yourself, where am I exposed? Am I 100% dependent on the market OS? Should I be building some branch B off-grid relationships just in case?
It's about diversifying your own operating system, making sure you have a backup.
Exactly. Don't let your entire existence ride on one line of code.
So that is where we leave you today. I want you to carry this image of the national OS with you. Next time you open a bill, next time you check your credit score, next time you see a price jump at the grocery store, don't just see a number, see the code.
Ask yourself, is this interface designed to help me or is it filtering me?
And look around your neighborhood. Can you see the branches? Can you see the hyper-integrated zones versus the people effectively going off-grid? The future isn't coming. It's just distributed unevenly around you.
It's all running in the background.
Thanks for diving deep with us. Keep observing the system, stay curious, and we'll see you on the next one.
Take care.